it seems like recently. Oh, okay, got it. Recently, there've just been a couple services that have really given me fits. I know one that I won't mention here for obvious reasons is
Is it Keynote?
no, you know, no, no, it's PowerPoint. I'll name that all day. PowerPoint. No, it just they just installed an upgrade, and that's what they were blaming it on. But it really wreaked havoc with a couple of interviews I did.
Oh, I can only imagine.
So when that doesn't go smoothly, it's just I mean, it's like anything else. It's like you go out to get in your car, turn the key or hit the button or whatever, and nothing happens. It's like, oh man, you get so used to it working well.
Oh yeah, that's so. This car is the first car we got that was like the push to start, and I'm terrified of the one day you go and you push it and like nothing happens, and you're like, I guess we're not going anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, it took me a little while to get used to that too, because I kept reaching up for to turn the key, and the key's not there. So
My problem is, and as I say this on live stream, nobody go to San Diego and follow me, but I tend to have a problem with just forgetting, because you have to keep your key. Like I don't keep my keys in my pocket because it has leather seats, and I'm afraid I'll like punch a hole in the leather or something. But then, so like I put them in the little console and I just forget. And it's like, luckily, like Mazda's pretty cool. They have this little like this app that'll tell you like, hey, your car's not locked. And I'm like, oh yeah, keys right in the car. Car is unlocked. need to go fix that. So
yeah, and I seldom leave my keys in the car. I know a lot of people that do, but
no.
because you need them to get in the house, you need them to get in the office. You need just.
No.
It just seems like anywhere I go, I probably need a key, so it's not a problem keeping them.
It's always at the grocery store. Like that's the one is you're at the grocery store, you're like, you don't need your keys for anything. So they just wind up sitting there. Mr. Gamut.
Mr. J. I like saying that better than Mr. Miller.
Mr. J. Yeah, Mr. Miller is like, I could see Neo's last name being, it could have been something Miller, and them just being like, yeah, you're nobody. If I call you by your last name, you just don't exist anymore. It's like Mr. Smith.
Don't tell Britney that.
Now, don't tell Mr. Smith that.
Yeah. How are you, Jeff?
I'm doing all right.
Good.
Are you getting background noise from me, specifically my air conditioner?
I can't hear it over my own fan, so
I'm not hearing anything. If it's there, it's certainly
good
not
enough
bothersome.
for me.
Yeah.
It's what is the temperature right now? It is.
If you have to ask, it's too hot.
It is. I know it's over 90 still.
Oh. You don't mean inside, you mean outside.
Outside, yeah.
Okay.
But when you have a place that was built in 1903, and it's it's cool. Like I can see the square head or rectangle head nails in the floorboards.
Are those are those the original door handles too?
Yes, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's a really cool place, but it's upper level, and so it's like a rectangle. One end of the rectangle faces west, the other faces east, and then the whole length of it faces south. And the trees that used to be providing some level of shade on the south and on the west, they picked up whatever disease just ripped through town a few years ago.
Oh man.
So it's basically direct sun all day long with 1903 level insulation.
Well,
So,
I can't make an
air conditioners.
I can't challenge you on heat, but I don't know if you'd be able to see this or not.
Is that the rain? You're getting
That big glob of green is aimed right at my house.
tropical depression. Is that what that is?
Yeah, coming up from and after seeing what it did to Louisiana, they're saying here 4 to 6 inches by tomorrow.
Wow.
Tomorrow night.
Our power cut off in a storm last night, and I was like, I know that hurricane didn't make it to California.
Yeah.
There's no way, but it blew my mind. Oh, Kelly, just because you're here, I'm gonna turn these off. Oh, nope, that's the wrong light. That's the wrong light. Okay, I'm gonna turn those off. So before, after. No, Kelly was helping me set things up.
And by helping him set things up, he means offering to give a kind and loving home to any additional lighting that was no longer useful in the setup he's in now.
So I feel bad because that one light is literally this light. And you're like,
oh, that's fine.
Yeah, it's like, oh, there's like a little shininess that that light is providing. But when I pull the green screen down, there's a obvious shadow, and then that light diffuses that shadow significantly.
Oh yeah, no problem.
But that said, would recommend Keylight Airs. They do a good job. And then if you need a gigantic light smacking you in the face, the big Keylight is also good.
So you said you got a deal. Where'd you get your deal?
It was just the Elgato site. They have like a bundle it's 2 Keylights for 200, I think. It's either 2 Keylights for 200 or 2 for 220, and they're like 130 a piece. So you wind up saving like $40.
Okay. I did go look. I did not see a deal on anything. That's why I was wondering. So
yeah, it's just there's one it'll say like buy 2 and get a deal, and then they'll be like buy this other thing for $3, and you're like no, I'm good.
Yeah, I saw like a key light and a light strip or something, or like you could get a Keylight Air and a Stream Deck or like, but I couldn't find anything that was like 2 lights. So
yeah, I have the light strip. Oh, wrong light. That one. Yeah, I have the light strip in the background. Hey, Frank's here.
It's a party now.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. We can't see you, Frank, but we know you're here. We hear you breathing. No,
At least we know his computer is
that
here.
might be me breathing.
No, we hear Jim's headset. That's what we hear. Yeah. Frank's muted, so we hear nothing there.
Frank's
So,
like,
If I can hear Frank, then I've got real problems.
Zoom keeps crashing on me.
That's not good.
Wait, I did hear Frank. Uh-oh.
Yeah. I be here. Well, my picture's not showing up on the thing though, is it?
It was.
I blame Zoom.
Yeah,
You
we had your avatar briefly.
Yeah, I know. What?
Oh, wait. Did you forget to turn on the lights in your place?
Oh.
This is
Oops.
this is nuts. This makes absolutely no friggin' sense. What is going on here?
That would be Zoom.
Mr. President.
That's right. That's right.
So I'm signing the wrong account.
Want to come back?
Hold on a sec.
Let me come back. I'll be right
This is
back.
Zoom last
Yeah,
week.
okay.
So I wouldn't want to be referred to as Mr. President right now.
Why am I? I got a red dot by my thing on Zoom. Did Zoom do an update?
Zoom has done several updates since I've last talked with you, Frank. So I'm not sure which update you were referring to.
I've done like 2, but I have something now. It says that I have an update under Apple.
This is via, I've got 5, I think I'm current. I've got 5.7.4898.
Let me see.
5.7.4898.
Now I got 5.76, 1320.
867 5309.
0.76.
You're ahead of us?
Yeah, that's what it
Are you
says.
sure, Frank?
From when I was a little kid, since I've been reading, that's what it says. Open source software, open
Right.
wound software.
Frank is living in the future.
You know what? He's not wrong. I'm showing a 5.7.6 is available. Gee, when did that come up?
So why did my picture go?
Maybe that's one of the features of the update.
Yeah, we're now going to audio podcasting.
New beautification
zooming.
methods.
Let me see.
Okay, there's data coming up.
Come on, Cam.
Not now.
Now all of a sudden my camera's not okay. Jeez.
5.7.6. That's what I'm
It's
running.
working. I'm looking on my phone. It's working fine. Everything's hooked up. All the software is hooked up. And it's just, it was working. And then I signed in and it just died.
Makes you feel better. You sound great.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you
Maybe.
so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I have a face for radio. Oh, where the hell?
Yeah, my problem is I have a face for radio and a voice for print.
Yeah,
So,
my
Frank, do you want to try to sign out and sign back in?
yeah, buy a
Okay, when
license?
Frank
What
comes
the
back in,
hell
let's all
that-
tell him we can't see his video, even if we can.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah, okay. Yeah,
Let's
I
all
gotcha.
just turn off our video.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and put a heavy echo on my voice, so I'm like in like a warehouse. All right, let me try again.
What was that? Okay.
Jim put on his screen protector.
That's good.
Now we're going for a ride.
What the heck is
Now
this
Jim
doing?
has thrown his computer across the room.
Oh,
Oh, he's
just-
coming in for a landing. Whoa.
Just the camera.
Oh,
We
I'm
should have
gone
done some
3
sound
minutes
effects
to
to go with
answer the
that.
phone. Frank's got no camera. Jim's taking everyone on a roller coaster. What is happening?
I'm here.
Kelly, you just can't leave us alone.
Not for a minute.
in other words, situation normal. I mean, you know,
More or less, yeah. I mean,
I showed up when you were here.
I don't know about you guys, but I'm glad I'm not an Apple employee.
I mean, yeah.
I'm
I agree.
regularly glad of that.
I'm glad
Maybe.
again today.
why did I miss something?
Yeah, did you see the story about how Apple gives their employees no privacy and
No, none whatsoever. No.
Oh yeah,
well, no, I mean, like they require you to use your personal iCloud account on their devices, and you're not allowed to wipe them when you turn them in.
I think that's been misconstrued, and I'm not defending Apple treating employees like shit, but I think that that Apple not making it clear to employees that they can set up a work specific Apple ID is the problem, and so people think that they
Well,
that they have
according to
use
this
their personal
article,
ID.
they are told they're told not to do that. That we want you to dog food. We want you to use this
really?
stuff as much as possible. So do not set up a separate work account.
That seems like just bad business practice in general.
It does.
Yeah.
It seems terrible.
yeah.
Hmm.
I mean, it's kind of ironic that so many places resist, bring your own device and don't want anything personal on your machine, on your machine, or any
Yeah.
business stuff on your personal device. So, yeah.
Yeah, if I had an employer that expected me to use my personal accounts for business, I mean, I would tell them no. My personal and my business stuff should not commingle. Period.
I feel like they would have had to tell you that going in if they were gonna. I don't know.
You would think.
My
Sounds
job
like they
is-
sounds like they did.
My job kind of puts me in a weird spot there because I have so many meetings. It's like my options are either use my work email to schedule all of my meetings, that way they don't conflict and then I have more problems. But other than that, yeah, I don't see myself using, like, blending personal and professional too much. But I mean, truly, that is because there is a good chance that there's some calendar event for something at 7 o'clock in the evening, and it's like I have to, I need to make sure that I'm available at that time. So it's very inconvenient for me to be like, hold on, let me check these two other calendars that I have to verify that I can even attend this other event, or let me just make sure that I'm using kind of one calendar. And I tend to just let people throw time on it using Calendly or something like that. That way they don't even have an option if it's available. But at the same time, if I want to save money, I got to use the one account, or I got to pay $10 a month, which is not a big deal, but stuff like that adds up.
Yeah.
This is weird. I have stopped video off. It's perfectly on. I'm getting the video on my little screen for my webcam.
What
And
webcam
I'm
is
not
it?
showing up on Zoom at all. Well, not my webcam. I'm actually using my iPhone SE, which I've used now for about half a year.
As your
Did you
camera?
look
Plug it
great.
in.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it's camo.
So
Then are you using camo or what?
No. I use. I've been all this time. I've been using Irium. Never a problem.
Oh, Irium. Okay.
All of a
Quit
sudden
Irium
tonight,
and restart.
I don't know. I'm getting a lot of beach balls. I think this machine's just dying.
Time to get another M1.
Well, I
Yeah,
told
what-
you it's going to be a portable.
Yeah,
We gotta start.
I'm looking at the
Wait,
M1 already.
Yeah.
We gotta
Webb said, I'd say reboot, Frank, the computer. and
Yeah,
not the
that's what
person.
I'm sort of thinking. Yeah.
So,
No.
Okay, I'll
Alright.
catch you guys.
No, wait,
What?
Frank.
What?
Give it a PRAM reset when you reboot it.
If you're going to use that kind of language.
Yeah, maybe it just has to pee.
Yeah.
Oh, if you think that language is scandalous, just you wait, sweetheart.
Yeah, I
Wait till your
know.
NV
It
RAM
just
meets
get
up.
hot in here.
I'm not going there, Kelly.
I'm sweating.
See you guys
Jeez.
a little bit.
all right, we're going to go ahead and start, Frank, just so you know.
All right. And you can
Okay.
just say, oh, look what wandered in off the streets.
Yep. Okay. Sounds good. There he goes.
Do I have time to get a beverage before you actually go start? Oh, yes, because Jeff has to do the underpants dance. So I'll be right back.
Okay. Well, then
The underpants dance. We've upgraded.
I think that's a show title, and I don't even do show titles. All right. So let's get
Yeah.
rolling with this. So in 3, 2, 1.
Underpants dance. Let's do the underpants dance. Stalling for Kelly with the underpants dance. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't hear it.
I didn't know you could sing, Jeff.
I'm glad you're recording that so we can clip that and make sure that
That's going to be someone's ringtone at
that
some
will
point.
Exactly.
exist on the internet forever.
I have no
Yeah.
idea what it is, but it'll probably be my ringtone.
It should be Kelly.
Kelly,
yes.
yeah, I believe
Mhm.
that we just crafted your new ringtone.
Yep,
Oh,
no que-
yay. That was so
No
nice of
question in
you.
my mind.
Now we have a theme song for the show.
Oh my God, we do.
Oh, jeez. All right. Yeah, work on a couple different
Underpants.
lyrics.
Okay.
All right. So here we go. In 3, 2, 1. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. And folks, in case it's not obvious, this is MacVoices Live. It's Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, and whatever time it is, wherever you are. We are live with our friends here on YouTube. We would love to have you here with us in the chat room. That is at youtube.com/MacVoicesTV. Come on in if you are if you're watching this, and if you're watching us later, then come on in next week, because we'll be back here same time, same station, same everything. Maybe a different panel, but everything else is the same. Number of different topics on the table tonight, so we're just going to dive into those. But before we do, we're going to find out who's here. So taking my screen as always before anybody turns their cameras on and off. First up, Mr. Jay Miller. Jay, welcome. Good to have you.
And just like that, he's gone.
Yeah, see, he did it.
Happy to be here, Chuck.
I get no respect. I'm like Rodney Dangerfield. I get no respect.
No sweat.
I
Jeff
understood that
Gamet.
reference.
Yeah, good. Jeff Gamet is here. Jeff, welcome.
It's great to see you. I love that your lighting and your wardrobe are color coordinated.
Thank you. I've been working on that. I try to keep that in mind.
Nicely done.
And folks, if you are a Mac Voices patron, you get access to Mac Voices After Dark. And you really should, not just to support the show, but to hear Jeff sing, because he just
That
did
was-
before we started the show. So
Quite an event.
yeah. And of course, you could always download then that and use it as your ringtone if you wanted to. So, here's just another good reason to support the show. Thank you, Jeff.
Sure thing. I'm here for you, Chuck.
You reminded me slightly of Dean.
Oh,
Of who? Oh,
Dean
of
Martin.
Dean.
Yeah,
Martin.
Dean.
Oh,
Yeah.
Well, all right.
oh, and here I am without a whiskey tumbler in my hand.
Yeah, or a top.
And a cigarette.
Yeah, so, yeah.
Emphasis on slightly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Work on that for next week.
You know, Chuck's got a great imagination, and good for you, Chuck.
Yeah, thank you. Kelly Gamad is here as well. Kelly, welcome.
Like it or not, yeah.
No.
I'm kidding.
Oh, good
I'm
to
just,
have you. as-
now I'm trying to do some math over here and figure out if Jeff is Dean, then who's Frank? So
Mm.
or who's Jerry?
Frank is Frank.
Yeah, Frank is
Yeah.
always Frank.
Yeah, Frank is not here yet. He's trying to come. We'll see if he makes it or not.
Yeah, but we do need also a Sammy.
indeed,
True.
Yeah.
Let's see. Who else do we
as
need?
as
Well,
the shortest of the batch of us, I assume that's me.
Okay, yeah, this checks out.
Thank
Yeah.
but can you tap Kelly?
Not really.
Okay. Well,
1989. There's not much reference for. I know the names. I know the references, but I can't help you here. I'm sorry.
Just do a quick Google search on Rat Pack,
Oh no! I know Rat
And-
Pack, but
and
I
then you can
can't-
decide who should be which person.
no, but then you lose the essence and charm of their
He
personality.
wasn't even a thought when they were around.
Yeah.
So
Were my parents a thought? That's a good question.
jeez. Okay, let's keep pulling this. Jim Ray is here, diving in and already abusing us as well.
I do not want to know who I remind you of. Just
Just leave it alone.
yeah,
Okay. All
keep
right.
it to yourself.
All right. But thank you for being here. David Ginsburg has showed up this time with the correct Zoom identification. Welcome,
Yes.
David.
thanks for having me. I just was rushing home. Had some dinner, and we were outside, and it started to rain, so we had to dodge some drops and get here. So okay.
Yeah. Well, we're glad
Amazingly,
you're
it
here.
rained here in California earlier.
Wow.
A lot.
It rained a lot. It just a little bit here down in
Oh,
San
we
Diego.
had
a lot.
power outage for about 3 hours due to
Wow.
thunderstorms this morning.
Mm.
Wow.
Well, and here
Yeah.
in central Pennsylvania, we're under the gun for the hurricane coming up and dumping what's left of its rain on us. So
Yeah,
see
the
how that goes.
tropical
I
depression.
hope it rains on the fires in Northern California.
Yeah, isn't that the truth? So I don't know if we want to pick up the first topic we had on the agenda tonight. We can go to, or we can continue some of the discussion we had pre-show. If anybody wants to continue that, I'll leave it up to you all. Or do we just want to leave that alone?
I put the link to the Verge story in the chat.
Okay. Well, if you want to, I mean, we were talking about Apple's apparent confusion over privacy issues for their own employees. And Jim, do you want to just elaborate on that a little bit since you threw it in there? And meanwhile, I will throw the link to the chat room.
Well, there was a story on The Verge, I guess it was today. I saw it in Michael Sai's feed, that Apple is asking employees to use personal accounts for work and on their work devices, and that this is causing a lot of problems for employees, especially when they leave Apple. And there was one story about a woman that was on a team that was involved in litigation. And so she wasn't part of that, but she was on the team. So the lawyers are like, we need all your, everything on your device, which wound up including nude pictures that she had sent to somebody she was dating. So seems like a problem.
It's a little, it is a little surprising, and I made this point earlier that so many places the push is by the employees to bring your own device, and the employer is usually the one that is pushing back, saying, "Well, yeah, if we have to, but we'd really rather have you have a completely separate device."
According to this story, that these engineers are pushed to not have a separate personal because they're like, you're using these beta internal software, and we want you to use it as much as possible. So we want we don't want you doing a bunch of your stuff on something else. We want everything on there, and that they're pressured for that. And another issue that was mentioned was when they were testing Face ID, apparently every time they picked up their phone, it was recording them. And Apple kept that, and it was sent to Apple. They didn't realize that. And there's also a mention that actually, anytime a developer files a radar or somebody internal, which is a bug report, Apple asks them to submit a sysdiagnose, which it turns out has a bunch of personal information. So if you submit a radar to Apple, they're always like, "Is there a sysdiagnose?" And they have a tendency to say, if you don't include that, they're just going to ignore it. And so, apparently then at that point, your personal information is permanently in their radar system.
Just to be very clear on that, Jim, because I didn't get a chance to read this in detail, is that for anyone submitting a radar, or is that just for the Apple employees submitting the radar?
According to this, it's for anyone.
Okay. So if that's the case, it's really interesting that nobody has noticed that or realized that before, which makes me wonder about it.
Which makes me kind of question this article, honestly. I mean, I know this is coming direct from the source of an employee, but I'd be kind of surprised that is the case when it comes to the privacy for users, for us as Apple users.
You're not going to submit a bug report. You have to be an Apple developer,
right?
And there's you have to be a registered developer. Regular users can't do that, and this has been fairly recent. You didn't used to have to do that.
You couldn't do it through the public beta program?
Yeah.
Well, that's a different. That's not radar, I don't think.
Those are feedbacks.
What is radar? So I guess that's maybe I'm misunderstanding.
It's Apple's internal bug reporting, and I guess it's not called radar anymore. I think it is called feedback.
That was feedback.
Radar, they know what you mean.
Everybody still calls it radar, but that's no longer the official name because people complain so much about the radar system for many years that you submit radars and then you never hear anything back ever. And so a couple of years ago, I'll make a big fuss. We did it completely, and now we're gonna be much more responsive, and it's got this new name, and it turns out it's nothing's really changed except the name, and everybody still calls it radar. And like if you're at WWDC and talk to an Apple engineer, or anytime you talk to them and there's some problem, they're always like, "File a radar." Don't tell me this.
But it's not feedback assistant, because I do have a developer account and I do install betas on Macs.
If you have a developer account, then it may be. But if I think there's a for the betas and stuff, they have a different. I think that I believe you can file a radar without a sysdiagnose. It's just that they're likely to just close it and say no sysdiagnose, and so we're going to ignore it. And there was a funny here's a radar that was rejected for the reason that it didn't have a sysdiagnose, and the radar was there's an error in the documentation. So obviously assist
So
diagnosis.
why would you need a cisdiagnose for that?
Right. So it's like they didn't even read it. They just said, no cisdiagnose, boom.
Yep.
I'm kind of with David just a little bit. Some of this just seems so outrageous. On the other hand, to be fair about it, I don't think I believe there's a precedent for this. I think that Facebook early on had really encouraged their folks, if not demanded, that they use their personal devices to access Facebook to have a real user experience so they could point out problems. And of course, we don't know how that story ended. So
I started off by saying I'm glad at this point I don't work for Apple. I'm really glad I don't work for Facebook.
Yeah. Because who knows what they were capturing back then when the focus wasn't as stringent as
who knows what they're capturing now.
Hopefully we're holding out. Let's hold Apple to the stringent Facebook policy standard.
Yeah. What I would say about, and this doesn't really have anything to do with the specifics of this story, but for the most part, whenever I read stuff like this, and we've talked about it before, if you swap Apple with the name of another company, does it still sound like a newsworthy story, a topic of interest, something that should be getting discussed? So if it said Facebook, if it said Google, if it said Microsoft, whatever, like if Google were doing this and actively encouraging people to use their personal accounts, then would it still be a story? And the answer is, in this case, the answer is yes. Sometimes the answer is no. In this case, the answer is yes. If the company that you work for is encouraging you to mingle your personal data and your work data, that's not cool. I don't care who's doing it. That's not kind of how that works. So there's no kind of, that's just not how that works. That's not how it's supposed to work. If you would like me to occasionally use my personal account to put something through its paces because I'm not using the newest phone myself, or I've consistently run up against weird errors like this in the past, and so you want me to do it, like I volunteer to beta test software for people when it, as part of their job. Like, this is software that I'm testing. I'm trying to build a new feature. I want to try it out. Will you help me do that? Yes, I will volunteer my personal device to help you with that personally, and that's a different situation, but they're still using it for work, and it's my personal account, and it's just sort of, whatever that relationship looks like. But I think that holds up. And, data security and data privacy and all of that, like I take that personally pretty seriously with work data versus personal data. Like, I don't have personal stuff go to my work email. I never have. I don't have work stuff happen on my personal email. Now my personal phone shows me my work calendar because I have 2 different time zones. So like Jay, I have work things that happen at all different times of day, and I have personal things that happen at all different times of day. And I just need to make sure that those things don't collide. But I'm not answering emails on my personal phone. I'm not doing work on my personal laptop, things like that. So, to me, it feels like a pretty easy line to draw. I know lots of people don't, and lots of people are using work email addresses for whatever things they're using them for and all of that. But I've always tried to keep those things as separate as possible, because anymore, it feels like the last person in the world who tries to draw a great big line with one of those giant markers, that you're supposed to only use outside, between my personal stuff and my work stuff. On my computer, on my phone, whatever. So to me, this still sounds like a valid story if the reporting we're getting is accurate. Because another thing I have to tell people all the time is you got to be like 10% skeptical or more of like everything that you read, whatever it is, until you have another source or another piece of information or some other data that comes from like, a group or an organization or whatever that has no dog in the fight and says like this, this is what we see that's happening, whatever. So if The Verge is the only place that's covering this, that's the only place that we have any of this information, then that's a different thing. If other people are just reporting The Verge's reporting, then, that's still sort of one source, and I'm going to still kind of side eye that because it's a single source right now. And I would be doing the same if it were Google.
Yeah.
Like all of this sort of checks all the same boxes for me, regardless of the company behind it.
Yeah, and it's I guess it's starting to bother me a little bit that there seems to be so much of this out there. So, and I mean by that, this whistleblowing thing. I mean, it feels like sometimes that people are now just falling in love with the idea of being a whistleblower and calling anybody out for pretty much anything, that they don't like. And I'm sure I'm going to get somebody that's going to send me an angry email with that one. But
this is where the villain music plays when you're in stage and Jake comes out and starts contradicting you. But I'll let Jim go before I
knew that
throw
was
my
coming.
point out there.
I knew that was coming.
Well, I'm interested in hearing what Jay has to say, but I think the dam is kind of breaking, and there are people that have kept stuff bottled up. This story seems like it's kind of, to me, it just resonates like, yeah, of course that's what Apple's doing. I mean, imagine before the pandemic, the only way for you to really keep it separate would be to have different devices, and have a personal device. And I would think that Apple would really look at you sideways if you brought personal devices into their facilities. They probably don't want you doing that, especially laptops, but even phones. So, how would it be any other way? You can't put multiple accounts on a phone. So the only way to do it is to have a separate phone. And I'm sure Apple is just like, no way, you are not allowed to bring personal devices. It's a little different now, during the pandemic, people are working at home, so they could do it. But, this seems like, yeah, of course it's true.
So there's a couple of thoughts that I have here, so I'll try to pick out the most poignant one. So something that I've had at most of the corporate jobs that I've held is there's this belief of a company vision, company mission statement, how it conducts itself. We call ours its source code, and in every single piece of stuff there is like, this is how we show our source code of this whatever principle. And even in public statements, even when there's stock valuations, it's like, we're showing our source code of being nimble and quick and da 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 da. We want the world to know we have a source code. And I feel in many ways Apple has for a long time, whether they said this is what they believe or not, and it seems like they do, we value privacy. We value this. Take a look at how much we care about your privacy. Privacy, 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 privacy. It's privacy all the way down. And what happens is you can't have that both ways. Or if you choose to have it both ways, you have to take the good with the bad. You have to take the good press with the bad press of Apple is a company that vows privacy, but when you look at their employees, they're doing something that is inherently an invasion of privacy. And I don't think at the end of the day that this was malicious. I think this is humans writing code and one hand not talking to the other. This is one team saying, we want this information. Another team saying, well, we've had this instance where we needed this information. So you know what? Just grab everything. Let's just, it's for good reason. On top of that, I think that there is a way that you can do what they're asking. There is a way that you can say, hey, we want you using this as much as possible. It is called, you have an account that while you're working from this time to this time, you operate out of this account. And I don't know what the details are of how easy it would be to transfer purchases, or maybe you give them some account where like they can just download everything that they use normally and it's free if it's something that they pay for. But at the end of the day, I think it's fair for any company to say, or any publication to say, after you've talked about how privacy is important and it is a human right, and there's a whole nother level of press and how they involve with countries that look at privacy differently. I think it's fair to say, if you're going to talk about it, if you're going to make it your mission statement, if you're going to make it how you appeal to customers, you have to take the good press with the bad press.
I would agree, Jay. But there are two sides. There are at least two sides to every story. And right now we're seeing one side. And I think it was to David's point, that can be, I'm not ready to say clickbait, but it's certainly, if it's written up with just a touch of sensationalism, it's going to draw clicks.
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
so
'cause it
And
works.
it
so-
works, and The Verge is the only source right now of this topic.
Yeah,
I just
and
went and
that's
Googled it, and what's right on point of Kelly's point. This is totally, until I see other sources that are not quoting what The Verge says, I'm skeptical of it. I work in enterprise too, as everybody knows. I would not use my personal information on my work laptop ever, unless I absolutely positively have to. I have a laptop, I have a work laptop, and I maintain my own personal laptop. A lot of people don't like doing that. But me being in IT support, I see it every single day. It drives me absolutely crazy when I see people subscribing to all these newsletters and all this other crud on their business email, and they wonder why they're getting all this spam. Well, and plus you're overtaxing my company's system because of that, because you're getting that kind of spam. So it's at a point here that you do not want to be able to intermix. And if Apple's making someone doing that, I just find it so hard to believe. It's entirely possible. Definitely. I even looked up this guy's LinkedIn profile, and it just shows, briefly what he did as what his job was at Apple. He's working somewhere else now, of course. I just don't see, I can see why this guy would have a problem if that were the case. And if he's the one is doing the whistleblowing, maybe he's a disgruntled employee. I mean,
Lynn,
who
to be
knows?
fair, like I'm not saying that I'm not saying anything about this story at this point.
Right.
Like whoever this is, if this is the case, that's not cool. And if it's not like one team that's mixed messaging or whatever, then that's a different thing. But I need to get more information about what it is that's actually going on in order to form judgment about it. And I would say that no matter what. And that's sort of where I had to get through with on this one, because lots of stories come out critical of Apple. Some of them are legitimately critical of something that Apple is doing that's sort of boneheaded or tone deaf or whatever. And that happens, and it's legit. And like, we talk about that stuff over on TDO. We have a whole episode about like Apple goes around, like Jay said, banging the privacy drum so hard, they need to be able to take some heat about the way they're treating China. So same thing. You're going to have to take the press you're going to take if these are the kinds of things that you're going to do, especially in a big public way, when you come out on a video that loads and loads and loads of people are watching, and you're going to make it on morning news programs with the stuff that you announce, and you're going to make part of that video privacy is a human right, and then you're going to come out and do business in China in all of the ways that Apple's doing business in China, which don't necessarily line up with all this human rights stuff that you told me before. So like I need to get a little more information there and start figuring some things out. And this is the same sort of thing. Like if it said Google, it would still be a story. If it said Facebook, it would still be a story. So if it turns out this is legit, then not cool. And I don't know where I will rank in that line, but I will be in line to call them out for shenanigans on this, because it's not how it's supposed to work.
Jeff, you want in on this?
I do. First, Jay, you're absolutely right. With Apple's privacy stance, they need to be prepared to take the good with the bad, depending on how they're acting. Dave, you are totally right about intermingling personal and business on the same machine. I'm having a hard time at this point accepting that Apple is straight up ordering employees to use a personal Apple ID for work-related stuff, because that just opens up way too much information in both directions. Mm-hmm. And I have never worked with a company that expected me to use personal accounts for business-related things, and then the other side of that is once I have a business account for whatever the company is, at that point, I no longer have a reasonable expectation of privacy for that account, because it belongs to the employer. So if they want to listen in on every phone call, back in the before times when people would work from offices, if they want to listen in or record every phone call, they can do that. That's their business. Those are their phones. Those are their calls.
For sure.
Every email that comes in or goes out through that business email account, they can go and read all of them at any point. If there is a separate messaging system that's part of that, even if it's like a text message thing through a business phone number, they can read every single one of those messages and are probably logging and storing them for just in case. And that's totally fine. That's totally legit. Of course, it feels creepy because it kind of is, but that's business, and that's the way that works. Once you throw someone's personal account into the mix, at that point, as a CEO of a company, I would start to feel uncomfortable, because how much of that personal information do I really want stored as part of the official corporate record? I don't need, nor do I want, as a company owner, someone's flirting text messages with their partner. That's not relevant or appropriate for the business. And this is all stuff that has me thinking there's a piece we're missing from the Verge story. And I'm leaning to think that the piece we're missing is the part where Apple is not making it explicitly clear that you do have the option to set up a separate business Apple ID for work-related stuff.
Yeah, I was going to ask that too. Is that possible? If that were possible, I would do it. I have separate Apple IDs that I use for testing, and then I don't want to put. When I'm doing demonstrations, when I present, I don't want to put my personal information out on the screen, and if I don't have to, so I'm going to have a dummy account that I use, and why can't I use that? I can still use that and still have photos on there and still be able to test whatever Apple wants us to test, or wants the employee to test, I should say. So why? That's the first thing I was going to think of, is why not? And then your point of in the enterprise. Not only are they looking at emails, they're also going to have logs of everything that's on the computer that you're using, whether it be Windows or a Mac. You sign into your Apple ID on a Mac. I cringe. I see people doing it. I'm like, are you nuts? Why would you want your personal stuff on there? And then they sign out of it, and then they wonder why they're still getting FaceTime calls on their business Mac. Well, of course, that's because you should not have done that, and nothing. And then the guy also did his taxes on his business.
Oh my God!
Are you out of your mind? That's the same thing with me all the time. And I'm sorry, I'm on my soapbox today here. It's whenever I see anybody doing their taxes on their business laptop, I think, are you crazy? Why would you do that? Oh, I don't have a laptop. Well, don't you think you should have your own personal laptop?
Go get one.
Yeah, I would do my taxes on my business laptop. I'm not gonna lie. I don't understand.
Well,
they already have my social security number. I work for them. They have to supply it.
But they don't have your spouse's information. They don't have income from or any other things that you do this is any of their business.
That's fair. No, that's very fair.
So let me drag the chat room in here. Brian says, I think it's very important to keep work personal separate, even for mental health as well. Need to shut down work stuff for a while to relax.
Bingo.
As much as possible, separate devices, but at least ensure that separate accounts are used. For example, while tedious, it's important to log in, log out, and be able to set away. And I that brings a whole nother angle to it. So for next up, I want to make sure I welcome Britney Smith back to the panel. Britney, good to have you. Glad you were able to make it.
Yay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So I want to get your thoughts on this, but I also want to throw out that I do know of some companies that I've been involved with, sometimes at arm's length and sometimes farther. But I can think of at least one situation where there was a conflict in the office because the employer did want and expect the employee to use their personal phones for business. Okay, so that's the first thing. Okay, hang on. It gets well, not better, just different. Second, I know of at least one company that says, yeah, bring your own device, but our IT people will install the security, our security software on it so that they can make sure that you're not bringing viruses or anything else in. The third part of this, though, is also with the pandemic, I think a lot of us, ended up using personal devices of all descriptions for work because work either couldn't get them or work wasn't prepared, or we just said, hey, it's a whole lot easier for us. So there are a lot of shades of things going on here that I think you really have to take a look at. In a perfect world, yes, I'm with Brian and I'm with all of you. Separate devices, separate everything. I'm just not sure that that's reality at this point. Brittany, any thoughts on all this?
There are a lot of jobs where they don't have knowledge work jobs. Like I was just saying, like a lot of times the person running the beer cart at a golf course, they don't always have an issued device for while they're out there. They're just get a phone call from the shop. Hey, can you get a sandwich for number 2? And that's the thing that happens. I actually don't know if that's what happens at my family's business, but I didn't ask them before we got on here. But I mean, those things happen all the time because it's not a knowledge work job. So they're not issuing out things like that, but that's small and their private data is probably not as at risk in that case.
And they're not going to be giving the company that device when they leave.
Right.
And the company doesn't have the right to, go onto the device and, take whatever information they want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So live and in person, Mr. Frank Petrie has joined us. Frank, welcome back. We've missed you.
Yes, well, I've was out in front and I sold this dang stupid piece of garbage, and I'm now running a Chromebook.
Ooh, don't say that.
This thing is, oh God, this thing is such a piece of trash. Why do you think this is on the last level for Montgomery? There's a reason. Does anybody got an M1 they can spare me until the next M1s come out? This, oh God.
The device is so old it doesn't run Monterey, it runs Montgomery.
This is exactly.
Did you order it from a catalog by any chance?
That's where I went.
No, I've had this thing for 7 years, and all of a sudden now in the last year, it's been beach ball heaven. It does anything else. As a matter of fact, trying to get back on, it was blaming Text Expander for not being able to boot. I'm like, what? So
time for new machine.
What did I
Frank,
miss?
you might. Well, apparently, we need to get you an old priest and a young priest.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
I don't even want to know about
the
that.
sing along.
Yeah, all you missed was the sing along, and
I didn't get to do Kumbaya.
No, we saved that for the end, so
okay.
It'll be fine at the end.
Well, s'mores.
Oh boy. Well, I think we've let enough light into this topic because it should be simple, but it is complex, and it's complex because
not if you have
involved.
Not if you have a hammer. It's very simple.
Well, yeah, that's another solution to it. So there was a story going around this week about Tim Cook that he wants to. He's been there for 10 years. Which that I had to go back and do some math. It's like, really? It's been 10 years. Wow. Because
he's been solely in charge for 10 years. He's been there for like 23 years.
20 some. Yeah.
Yeah.
Steve was grooming them.
Yeah.
But the idea that, because I still think we still say, oh, this is Tim Cook's Apple. How does it compare to Steve's? And after 10 years, there is no comparison. And I wanted to just throw out some statistics, assuming I can find them, that I thought really interesting. Under Tim Cook, Apple's market capitalization has grown around 600% to 2.5 trillion, making it the most valuable public company in the world. And by the way, it did hit another new stock high today, so that 2.5 is probably out of date. Apple's annual revenue in 2011, when Cook took over, was 108.2 billion. In 2020, it made 274.5 billion. And Apple, it was also the most profitable company in the world in fiscal 2020. So I think Tim's not doing too bad.
What is this? I'm not even going to say fascination. It's gone on to fetish. What is this fetish with who's replacing Tim Cook?
Yeah.
I mean, this has been happening for a while, but like in the last year or so, people are talking as if Tim has announced he is retiring, and we're just waiting to hear who his successor will be. I mean,
Well,
what is up with that?
You know, Jeff, we've solved all the other world's problems. You know, world hunger is over. We're on Mars now. I mean, who's going to
No
replace
pandemics.
Tim Apple as the next?
Yeah,
that's the
good
next
point,
pressing
good
topic.
point.
Donald Trump.
Oh,
Oh,
I think-
here we go.
So
No,
Well, you had
Cancel,
to say
clear,
Tim Apple.
delete.
That's why I couldn't resist.
hey, that's who I could sell this computer to.
maybe. The thing that I wonder, I think part of it might have to do with the fact that some of the stuff that was set up for Tim is starting to time out. I think that's probably where the conversation is coming from. Like, I think his contract is up soon or something, or like he was only going to be there through like the end of 22 or something like that. Like, there are a few things that people know about
There are vesting
that are
points
public,
for
that
for
are
stock.
Age is another reason. I mean, some companies at 65 it's mandatory retirement as CEO.
Yeah. So but there are certain things I know, like the vesting schedule was one of them. And I want to say there was another thing, like as part of the succession plan or something that they are obligated to file as part of being a publicly traded company, that, like in some of those things, some dates have been defined. And I think that's where all the criminology is coming from. But I think part of that is just, is people talking about it for that reason, because I don't think it's occurring to anybody, because he's not really giving anyone the impression that he's going to just do it until the end of time, until he wakes up dead one morning and decides he's probably not going to go to work today. Like, we're not getting that impression from him where, he's talking about like, yeah, there's going to come a point and, I'm going to bid everyone farewell and, ride off into the sunset and go home and spend more time with my money. So
Just like every other CEO in the history of CEOs.
Most of them, yes.
Not every single one.
Yeah.
Well, generally speaking,
Yeah,
every
for the most
CEO
part.
shows up expecting that they have an end date. They just don't know what
Yes.
it is yet.
Exactly. So I think it's just a question of people see, like, only being able to see some of those public timelines and trying to backtrack from that. I don't think it's anything more complex than that at this point. And remember, there was a lot of chatter about because remember, Steve took like another shot at it. Like, he left for a while on medical leave and then he came back and was CEO for a while longer and then stepped away again when the 4S came out in that October of 2011 and then left. And so I think that's part of where, so there was a lot of discussion about what was going to happen before Tim Cook came on the scene. And, like when he took over as interim, when Steve left for medical leave, then, what sorts of things were going on then? And people were talking about, well, what if he doesn't come back? And is the guy that's doing it temporarily the right guy for the job? Like, who is this Tim Cook, new kid on the block that no one's ever heard of before and nobody knows anything about? Well, he's been there for 15 years, dude, calm down. So there's a lot of stuff that I think is going into that conversation. And I think it's just the same sort of stuff we heard when Steve stepped away the first time he was very sick, because like this time we have some definite dates that we can talk about. So people are talking about them. So
I want to make sure I get some things in from the chat room. First of all, Joe corrected me. I think he was right. My days are running together. That the stock high was yesterday at 153.12. Webb says he'd be surprised if Tim Cook is a contract employee. Most CEOs are employed at will. And I think you're right, Webb. I think that we all tend to confuse the vesting points with the contract. And Webb says vesting for stock options and other incentives. Incentive comp is another issue. Brittany, you just threw something interesting in the chat room, and I'd like for you to explore that just a little bit, because I'm curious to hear what your thinking is, since you are, how'd you call it, a relative Mac baby?
Yeah. Tim Cook is the only CEO I've ever followed. But since y'all are real good at reminiscing about the old days, I've actually learned a lot. So I feel at least somewhat comfortable talking about, but my feelings aren't swayed from that. So the first time I heard the name Steve Jobs that I have any knowledge of, I was a film student, learning about the Pixar studio. And I said, "Oh yeah, this guy sounds awesome. This Steve Jobs guy." His mom said, "Is that the Apple computer guy?" And I said, "No."
No, it's the cartoon guy.
Cartoon
Yeah.
guy, mom. Duh.
Why would he be doing that? Because I had never heard of him before. Yeah. And then, Windows Vista broke me and I got a Mac. And after a while I started following it, but for a while I just had a Mac. And so I only ever heard about Tim Cook. And I don't, yeah, Vista did break a lot of people.
That's why you just saw me do this about Vista.
But Steve Jobs was a great founder, and Tim Cook is a better CEO.
Okay.
I mean, the reason we can get mad about crap that he does with China is because he does other things that make us feel all warm and fuzzy, yelling at stockbrokers who want to hear their environmental impact on the return on investment. And, he does things like that are like, oh, yeah, that's a cool thing. And so then you can get mad. But if you're just a regular CEO, you don't really get mad about all the lame stuff they do because they're just another lame CEO. That's kind of like politicians. You don't expect a lot out of them. So whatever, they did something else crappy.
I think Steve was an incredible showman, and that's the big difference.
Of course, I haven't
no
ever
matter how much Tim
seen it.
tries in those films, and as much as they coach him, he just doesn't come off as natural as Steve did.
No, and in no book is that a requirement of a CEO.
Mm-mm.
But here's the thing. There's this space in charisma called punchable. Steve Jobs was very punchable. He would say something and I would look at him like, I kind of want to punch him in the face. Like not for what he said, just for looking at him. I kind of want to punch him in the face. I don't see that with Tim. I feel like Tim is just kind of like,
well, he's your granddad.
Yeah, it's like, we could talk about other political, like, people who are just kind of like, they have a face worth punching, or they have a face that reminds you of your great grandparents. One or the other. And to me, I think that image, that way that you give off, that personality type, is a part of being a CEO. And whether that's your style, like, some people like an abrasive CEO or the badass CEO. Some people like the Gary Vaynerchuk types that are like, I make everybody hustle around me and I demand that no one talks to me unless it's $1 billion idea. And I feel like that was the kind of person that Steve gave off. That was the kind of aura around him. Tim is probably like that too, but he does a really good job of hiding that. It looks like you just want to be like, "Oh, Tim, where'd you say you were from? Alabama? All right, well, go War Eagles. All right, then. You have a good day. All right, I love you too. You take care now."
A lot of people look at Steve Jobs and they talk about his charisma, his presentation, and his ability to really draw people in. And they're looking at a snapshot of his presentation ability. I have been in the Apple community long enough to remember when Steve was a crappy presenter. I mean, he had some charisma, but if something didn't work right,
do you
remember the iPhoto iPhoto thing where he got so pissed off he threw the camera off stage?
And what was the first thing that went through your mind when you saw that?
Well, did he ever get past that, or did they just stop making mistakes like that?
He did get past that. And a perfect example is several years later, there was some like straight up catastrophic demo failure where they had to reset and start it over. And I can't even remember what it was, but it happened.
iPhone.
No, it wasn't the iPhone. It was something else, because Tim was actually sitting at a computer on stage and everything just took a dirt nap. And so while they were fixing it, he just became everyone's best friend and started telling us these cool stories about him and Woz in the early days when they were kids.
It was 2008. I was there at the 2008 Steve Note. I remember because he like threw the remote like he was looking to knock somebody out in the first or second row when it happened.
Right. And we all thought, now we know who just got fired.
Yeah. And and I was like, wow, how many people just got fired right now? And he was completely silent for about 3 seconds and then looked up and told a story about how Woz had this device. I'll never forget it because it was a great story. Because Woz had this device that would make the TV signal blink out. And so they would wait until all the nerds were like convened in the common room in the dorm watching TV. And then they would stand in the back and like blink the remote so the TV would go. And then they'd wait till somebody got partway to the TV and then let it go again so that it would come back. And then they'd go to sit down and blink till they got somebody in some weird position and then had to stand there like that the whole time so they could finish watching Star Trek. And it was a really great story. Because I got to go in 2007 to the Steve Note and 2008 to the Steve Note. And 2008 was the one where everything fell apart. I don't remember what the product was that we were getting at that point, but it was the year it was the MacBook Air Note, but it wasn't the MacBook Air demo. It wasn't the part that was
that the one where too many people were on Wi-Fi and he asked the entire audience?
That was a different one.
No, that was a different one.
Yeah. So what's happened is when Steve was obviously a crappy presenter, someone must have taken him aside and said, dude, we have got to get you some training.
This
and they did, and it worked really well. And so now everyone remembers Steve, the cool showman on stage. When Tim first started presenting, someone took him aside, I'm sure, and said, dude, you're a really crappy presenter. And they went and got him training as well, and it made a marked improvement. So we ended up with the showman, Steve Jobs, and the person that comes across as very genuine and honest, which is Tim Cook, and it's different things. So, I completely forgot what the original point was, and but I hope that whatever point I needed to make actually made.
Well, look, I don't want to go too far down the Steve Jobs because we were
talking about being a good presenter, I think was
but I guess the point is, we're talking about Tim Cook, and Steve was Steve, and he was great in his time for the way the world existed and the way that Apple existed. There's no way to tell whether he'd still be a great CEO now, and it's water under the bridge. It's just pure speculation. I look at Tim and let's see. Brian said Jobs seemed to be a bit more reactionary, whereas Cook seems more calculating in his reply. And I would agree with that. I don't think there's any question. Tim is a lot more politically correct because the world, like it or not, is much more politically correct. Yeah. So,
or at least aware, and not necessarily being,
Elon Musk isn't politically correct in 2021.
I think that's also the response of living in the world, living as an elderly gay white man that grew up in the South. Like, that's not politically correct. That's having to deal with a bunch of BS your entire life and then work around it.
Yeah.
Right. And then in comparison, Elon Musk comes from South Africa. I mean, holy crap. Still, even though apartheid is over, incredibly racist. And I'm not saying Elon is racist, but he was raised in an environment where that's just part of the culture. Yeah. And anyhow, he comes across more like a dick.
Very silver spoony.
Well,
I think now
Steve did that a lot too.
He did.
I think
but Steve ended up with the training so that he could come across as a silver spoon dick that you still kind of like.
He was a petulant child.
There's a lot though. Like, I feel like there are a lot of good things to say about Tim's presentation. Now, is Tim the most excited person that's ever given an Apple demo? No. Is he the most polished? Maybe. Is he competent at what he's doing? Is it easy to understand him? Is it easy to follow along? Is he very clear? All of the stuff that you want out of a presentation. Like when Tim Cook is done talking to me about the thing, I can tell you about the thing because he's given me the stuff that's important about it. He's showed me the thing, the things that are interesting. Here's if there's the tech behind it or whatever. Like Tim Cook I think he's a very, very good presenter. And there are times when I would like for my presentation style to be more like Tim Cook's end of the scale than my sort of, methed up chipmunk end of the scale, because that tends to be where I rank on the, way on the other side of it. So I really appreciate like his attitude, his polish, his presentation style. I like all of that in what he does. And I think he's enjoyable to watch. I thought it was enjoyable to watch Steve. I really enjoyed watching Steve fail at that 2008 Macworld demo, but mostly because I liked seeing what was going to happen next. But I liked them, but I like them for different reasons. Just like there are different James Bonds, there are different Doctor Who's, there are different iterations of all kinds of things. And like, you can like the ones that you like for way different reasons and still like them all. And that's kind of where I come down on this one. Like, I really appreciate Tim's presentation style. I like watching the videos. I would very much like to be in a room again someday and watching him unveil a thing. That would be awesome. But not for the same reasons it was great to be in the room when Steve Jobs did it.
Most CEOs are not known for, presentations. That's not the major part of a CEO's job. Right. And, Steve was kind of an anomaly that way. Mm-hmm. And if it weren't for Steve, probably Tim wouldn't be doing presentations. And it seems to me like mostly he just hands off to other people, which is fine, as it should be. Mm-hmm. He's not like Steve would stand on the stage all day and actually hands-on, show stuff. Tim doesn't, really do that. But, and I don't think, anybody's going to care. I mean, the point is he runs the company. He did things like decide to have dividends, which Steve never did. Mm-hmm. He's a manager. He's a corporate person. He came up through that channel. And, probably the next person will be even more so. And I guess, that's, talking about what's next, presumably that's probably going to be a big change. The company could significantly change once somebody else comes in. We have no idea, is it going to be a product person? Is it going to be, somebody from the supply chain again? Right. I think that's why people, are interested, but there's we have no way of knowing who, I guess what the board is going to pick who the next CEO is, or maybe Tim will try to anoint someone there, but there's been no real clues. I don't see anybody being groomed or, I don't know. Am I missing something there?
Yeah, you are, because I don't think they would. I mean, Tim only became evident, later in Steve's life, especially after Steve was sick. So I don't think we will have any specific signals coming from the board. I wouldn't be surprised if this decision has already been made between, 2 or 3 people and they're on that track. Because the one thing, I mean, let's not forget what I said before, they are the largest, most valuable public company in the world. And that means that the rules are going to be just a little bit different for them and for a lot of those top tier, hyper valuable companies. I think one point that I did hear amongst all that was that, Steve was Steve. And I think that one of the reasons we see the CEO role now, as I think it's been redefined. It was redefined by Steve so that we're all aware maybe more, especially in the tech area, of who the CEOs are. Otherwise, I doubt we would have ever heard about Facebook's CEO or Google's CEOs, but they've become part of the story.
Chuck, I think the thing that most industries have is whoever's at the top of the industry needs a fall guy. In terms of mobile computing and just dollars by, product, Apple is that top of the industry. They need a fall guy. Tim Cook does a really good job of not making it like he needs to be the fall guy. I don't think if Apple does something insane, people are going to be like, Tim Cook needs to be fired. They're going to be like, who's responsible for that department? Like, get rid of them now. I think another person that does this, and I know I'm going to get booed off stage now, Sachin Nadella. Sachin Nadella has done so much for Microsoft without his name being in the news every single day.
Yeah.
And it's almost amazing how he can just be like, oh yeah, I'm the CEO for one of the largest companies in the world, yet I can walk down the street and most people will not know who I am, which I think is absolutely phenomenal. And I see this with Facebook. Facebook is still the number one social media platform. Again, they have a CEO that's very punchable, but it becomes easy to say, if something happens, what do? Fire the guy at the top. If Twitter does something stupid, we've been yelling for Jack to get fired for ages. If, Instagram and everything else is also owned by Facebook. Blizzard Activision just had this problem where the state of California is saying like, hey, y'all are under lawsuit. And what happened? The CEO of Activision said, hey, guess what? People don't know who I am, but they know who is the CEO of Blizzard, J. Allen Brack, who reports to him. So the CEO of Activision did get fired. The CEO of Blizzard did. And that's where, in my opinion, we want someone in Apple that we can go, you know what? They screwed up, fire that guy or fire that person. I really hope that they do, introduce a little bit more diversity into their board and their leadership team. And CEO would be a great step. But at the end of the day, they're saying who's going to replace who's going to replace Tim Cook, because the last guy before him was a lot more interesting than the person now. So when Apple inevitably screws up or does something crazy, we can be like, you know what? Fire the person at the top. And honestly, they just want the ratings to go up. They want the clickbait to drive harder. And that's why we have thought pieces every few weeks about, hey, who's going to replace Tim Cook? Because he's kind of boring.
Yeah.
I don't think any of that's serious.
I already turned down the interim CEO position because they insisted that I use my personal Apple ID.
They wanted you to
Totally
wear
fair,
pants.
Jeff.
They wanted you to wear pants.
And
All
pants.
right,
And
time. The show's over. Bye,
Yeah.
folks.
That was,
I think there's
on
a part of this that I think isn't necessarily getting considered. And that is like we talked about to begin with. I think Jay mentioned like a lot of places have a mandatory age where you sort of time out as CEO, regardless of how much you want to continue to be there as CEO. You don't get to do it anymore. And a lot of the folks that we're looking at, if you go to apple.com/leadership or whatever it is, you see a bunch of dudes and they're all like older dudes. And
Yeah.
I'm not sure how interested most of those older white dudes are in getting to spend 10 or 15 or more years in the big boy seat. I don't know how many of them are. So if people want to really speculate, like, let's talk about the fact that like almost all those guys are sort of in the same demographic and, in a bunch of ways, which is a separate conversation, but they're all kind of the same demographic. And none of those people who, get to be like in their late 50s are going to go, yeah, I really want to sign up to be the CEO of a multi-trillion-dollar company for the next 10 or more years. Like, that's not my jam. The whole reason I took the job that put me on this webpage in the first place was so that I could eventually retire and go home and spend more time with my money. And that's, and being CEO was never part of that plan. So what I'm really interested in is figuring out who the folks are who would be interested in doing something like that, who are going to have the longevity to do exactly that sort of thing. Because like people have talked about Phil Schiller for a long time. He's not going to be interested in that gig. Like, no,
He's already half retired anyway, right? In fact,
Exactly.
That's kind of the, maybe the even more interesting point is if we look to 2030, let's say, probably the top 20 people at Apple now are all going to be gone.
Mhm.
So it's going to be a completely different, management team and maybe, like 70% of the top 100 people. So Apple, one way or the other, it's going to be a completely different company by the end of the decade.
Because, like, I mean, even now, like by the time you add in Apple retail and the number of people who work there, like if you want to add that, like, you know, it'll completely screw up the statistic. But how many people who have a job with Apple in Cupertino, like what percentage of those people are people who worked there when Steve Jobs ran things? Because that number is not as high a percentage as anybody thinks it is, and it's continuing to shrink.
Sure.
They take their money and run.
Right.
Okay,
well,
so
in a bunch of ways. So I like, that's the other piece of, like, if people want to speculate about it, don't talk about how one guy on the leadership page is going to replace another guy on the leadership page, because that doesn't sound very feasible unless you're talking about one or maybe two of the people on that page. Like, none of the rest of the people on that page are interested in taking that job once Tim Cook is
Well,
gone.
not just interested. The board's not going to want somebody that is just a short termer,
Right?
unless it's an
Oh, yeah.
interim position.
Yeah. So to go back to the chat room, on the subject of presentations, Joe says part of the difference was that Steve, and I would presume Tim as well, rehearsed a lot. And I agree with you completely, Joe. Webb points out Tim Cook has made the stockholders of Apple, who are the owners of Apple, very happy. Agreed with that. That's real easy. And Brian's point, a good CEO, regardless of their background, e.g. supply, design, etc., needs to know to put their aces in their places. Very, very good point. So I thought this was interesting. You know, this article pointing out, you know, what Apple has done under Tim Cook, and you know, it inevitably brings up the question of a successor, because you know, you'd like to think that the DNA of Apple will continue to run. And that's one place where I will go back and say Steve put that DNA in place so well that the stock barely blipped when he passed away, or when he stepped down, and then of course when he passed away. You know, so that is as good an indicator as any of what the perception of a company is going to be. So I think it is relevant that we talk about who the successor is, but we're certainly not going to have any influence on it. So we're running a little short on time. I had no idea with this. We were going to go down these paths as usual. So I'm going to bring up one of the other stories we talked about, and that's this ruling by South Korea that they're going to force companies like Apple and Google to allow other payment systems in their app store. Discuss.
Yay, boo. I don't know.
We'll see. Well, first of all, we'll see. The president of South Korea, we talked about it this morning on Daily Observations. So the president of South Korea is of the ruling party, and the ruling party put forth this bill.
And he was endorsing it.
And he said he was for it. And the legislature there has passed this bill, which the president of South Korea has said he will sign into law. But much like our legal system, if something gets signed into law and you are a large enough organization that you can have a big enough cow about it that you want to take it to court, you can do so. And if you think Apple and Google both together, and Samsung, who also has an app store, which I learned today, if you think that all three of those companies are going to sit back and go, oh, South Korea says we have to allow a whole nother payment system on our platforms, cool, then you've got another thing coming. So there's no way that's happening, and they're going to take it to court. I don't know what that looks like in South Korea. I don't know how it works in South Korea. I don't know how long it takes, but it is absolutely going to be the next step of this. So yes, they can sign it into law, but there's a huge bunch of stuff that needs to happen before it becomes reality that all of these companies are going to have to face. There's a whole bunch in the middle that's going to have to get sorted out first.
I think the big question is this contagious?
That's really the only part of this that's notable, is what this is going to do to laws in other countries, to, you know, what's the EU going to say about it? What's the US going to say about it? You know, where those things are going to go from there, because this is just sort of forcing the issue. Like, if one place can pass this law and find a way for it to be legal and not have it be a country where everything is done at the whim of the nut job that lives in the leadership's home, or whatever. Like, if it's not something like that, then this is just forcing the hand. This is a thing that we've seen coming for years. So it's really just a question of time. It was really just a question of time in the first place, whether or not this conversation was going to happen on a legal level. And now it's going to. It just is.
It's the old cliche, the first step is the hardest. So they're just waiting for one country to make the move. And once that country makes the move, the others are going to go, well, if they did it.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me throw out a scenario, because, and I have zero information on how much business Apple does in South Korea. But is this where Apple, Google, I didn't know Samsung had an app store. That was really interesting. But is this a place where Apple and Google could draw the line and say, you know what? If you're going to do this, then we're pulling out.
They won't
They
pull
would
out
have to
Korea.
combine forces.
They'll certainly threaten that.
They'll team up,
That's South
though.
Korea.
I can tell you exactly what's going to happen.
The enemy of my
Apple
enemy
already
is my
told
theory.
us exactly what's going to happen. As a matter
I'll
of fact,
listen to the CEO.
yeah, Tim said, I think it was in May, during testimony for the Epic trial,
Yes.
that if Apple is put in a position where they are forced to allow payments outside the App Store system, that and I'm not even going to get into the stuff that he was saying about security, privacy, fraud, and all that. What he said was that the developers are still going to get charged the 15% commission. What's going to change is that now Apple's going to send them a bill and say, this is what you owe us. And so now the developers are going to have to spend more time and more money to deal with paying their 15% than they are currently doing.
How would Apple know what the number on the bill is?
I don't know.
Because
I mean-
Apple values your privacy. A lot.
There you go.
Well, no, I'm serious. If I
No,
start
I don't
using
know.
Stripe directly from my app, Apple has no way of knowing that unless they start, monitoring, all the internet traffic from the device, and I don't think they can get away with that.
They didn't go into, or he didn't go into technical details,
No.
but he said this is what will happen.
I think
that's
the-
important.
the-
To charge
the
Technical
difference
details are
there-
important.
Whoa,
The
one at a
difference
time,
there,
guys.
Jeff, is they're talking about payment processors, not a different store. If you're using a different processor in the same app store, they would absolutely have the ability to track that information. If you're using a separate store, then you start getting into some gray areas,
Right.
which
Right.
it sounds like this is saying you have to have a different payment processor, which
Yes.
don't mind me while I wait for Stripe's IPO to happen and I go buy some PayPal stock. Like, I'm okay with this.
Right.
You're okay, Jay, with them requiring the
what?
multiple.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean that's fine. Again, hi, you're American socialist here. I am always going to be in favor of saying give people however many good options there are, and require for companies to work harder. I don't see Stripe is perfectly capable of being able to integrate with the App Store if Apple would let them. They have the ability, they have the income to do this in a safe and secure manner. PayPal, as much as I don't like their CEO because he's kind of punchable, but at the same time, they're
Not kind of.
capable of doing this. It's a matter that Apple will not let them. And I get it. You want to hold on to that 15%. And I think, Jeff is right. Apple will say, don't worry, we're going to get ours. We're the we're the richest company in the world. We're going to get ours. It's going to happen. So I think at that point, fine, make it more competitive. Bring it, do it.
So let me ask, because I want to make sure we're using the right parallels here. This is like when you get a new payment terminal that takes Visa, but also takes Diners Club, right? Like that's what we're talking about, is a new way to accept a payment in my store. My store still knows exactly how many pairs of pants Jeff bought while he was there. It's 0, but they know, the store knows
I don't
regardless
think
of
that's
whether
what
I
this means.
paid with my Visa or whether I paid with my Diners Club. That's what we're talking about, that Tim Cook was talking about in the Epic trial. That's what he's saying is an alternate payment method. So now I accept a different credit card is, through an alternate payment system is a different payment system. That's not the same as Apple now has to let the Samsung store put whatever nonsense on an iPhone that they want to. That's a very different thing.
I think it's an entirely third thing. So on a web page, I can put a buy button, and that goes to my server, and then my server contacts Stripe, and Stripe knows about it. Nobody else knows about it. There's, from a technical point of view, there's no reason you couldn't do the same thing in an iOS app. You could make a button, the button uses the web, contacts the server, which contacts Stripe, has nothing to do with Apple. So in other words, like say you download your app from the App Store for free as a free app, and then there's a buy button that goes through Stripe. And I think that's what we're talking about South Korea saying. So not buying the app through Apple's App Store, but allowing an app to, or even outside, like what Hey wanted to do, saying, okay, I want to have a buy button on my website, and then when you download the iOS app, I'll log into my account, and people were doing that, like FastSpring. You could, get a FastSpring account, and then you download the iOS device, iOS app, and then you log in, but you paid through their website. And then Apple cracked down and said, as a matter of policy.
Omni got smacked.
The first line in this Wall Street Journal article says Apple and Google will have to open their app stores to alternative payment systems. So as that's being read, it sounds like they're saying you should be able to process the payment as it's happening from within Apple's existing app store.
Okay.
Those reporters don't know what they're talking about.
Well,
I can only talk about the
ask
the
me how I
article that
really
I'm
feel.
reading.
Well, here's the thing, and I can speak to this a little bit because I sort of know, and I'm going to give you full disclosure on why. This is a thing that has been a problem that Mr. Kelly has been trying to solve at work for a long time. He works for a company that has a website where you can buy things. And when you buy those things in Oregon, the amount of sales tax that is charged to you by the website is 0. And if you live in Washington, it's some, if you live anywhere else, it's some percent, and it's different everywhere. And if you live in a particular city, there may be additional sales tax on top of whatever the state sales tax is that you have to pay there, and so on and so on. And so,
Don't forget about the county tax.
Sales tax. They tell two friends, and they tell two friends, and so on and so on. So that's it. So, and this is different in every state. And one of the things that he has had to do is figure out how the system works and help get the system implemented that makes it so that things can be paid for effectively, and so that the right amount of tax is being collected. So if somebody goes to buy something, if I go buy something and tell them that this is my address, they charge me 0 tax because there's no sales tax here. But if Jay does it in California, they charge him 8% or whatever it is that he has to pay because he lives in California. And and that's different from Jeff's, because Jeff has to pay Colorado tax and Bull Day tax, and I have to pay for the crazy ass statue in front of the airport tax and all of those things. So we have all these, like, everybody's is different. And one of the nice things about letting Apple take care of all of that for you is Apple takes care of all of that for you. You as a developer don't have to. So like Jim, if you put the button on your website now, like Stripe may do it for you, but not everybody does that for everybody. So if you're not using Stripe, if the point is like, I want Apple out of my business, that's going to be a very different conversation, because now it's up to the developer or the developer's store, the developer's payment processor, to make sure that all of that stuff is happening the way that it should. And that's not necessarily an easy thing to do. There are whole companies whose job is to help other companies make this stuff make sense.
But that's a whole different issue. Like, Netflix is like, sure, that's great, but I can get that job done for less than 30%. Thank you very much. It doesn't cost, whatever Netflix had to pay Apple to do that. And So that, that's really a separate issue. That's not saying, oh, well, you can now skate on all taxes and stuff. But I can't imagine that Korea is saying, well, Apple has to implement a different back-end payment processor. That can't possibly be what they mean.
I mean, it would make sense to me if you're saying, like, if only a part of my business is what I make on the App Store and I'm doing all of my other business in Stripe, it would be nice for me to combine my Stripe. That's why I don't use Patreon. I use GitHub Sponsors. Why? Because GitHub Sponsors integrates directly with Stripe. So I only have one place to manage all of the freelance business that I do, including how I get paid for patronage.
Yeah, sure. There's lots of companies. They have web business. They maybe have a Windows business. And they're like, why do we have to carve out, we've already figured that out. Why should we have to, pay Apple way over inflated prices to do something we already have to do?
Yeah, I'm okay if Stripe joined the game and they said, hey, you know what? I want all of my stuff to go through Stripe's payment processing for whatever reasons, probably for billing reasons, to be honest. I mean, I would enable that.
Payment processing is only part of the equation that Apple is giving when Apple is when Apple is taking their taste. Since everybody wants to compare them to the mafia anyway.
But you can buy everything that Apple is providing for like 10.
No, you can't.
15% of what Apple is. Yes, you can.
Nope.
No, you can't. And I'll tell you why, Jim, because the thing that the App Store can't, the thing that you can't get by having your own App Store is access to me, because my default stance is I need an app. Is it in the App Store that I've been trained to use for these many years? There's an App Store story that may end up being there. If you don't automatically have an easy way to share a link so that I can go, hey, Jim, this app is awesome on my phone, you should have it on your phone too. That's not a thing that's going to happen. So 1, 2, 3, there's three things right there. I mean,
those things are entirely because Apple doesn't give a choice.
But ask anybody with a Mac who has an option for whatever the hell store they want to use, for whatever software they want to install. Ask them if they know that you can put software on your Mac that didn't come from the Mac App Store. And a non-zero number of people are going to go, I had no idea you could do that. And
sure, and yet an awful lot of software is available only outside of the Mac App Store. The Mac App Store is a perfect example of that. The App Store is, it's a dead water, backwater, because it's not competitive with directly, it's just not worth it to, what Apple charges is not worth. And if you had a choice on iOS, it wouldn't be worth it there either.
So Jim, what should Apple charge developers for hosting apps on the App Store, or making them available through the App Store?
The hosting space, the availability, the download, the disk space.
I think the point is...
Wait, Kelly, just let Jim go.
It probably should be, they can charge whatever they want as long as competition is allowed. The point is they've set up a monopoly. You can't install apps any other way. So they are charging, basically a robber baron toll, whatever they can get away with. And they...
I disagree with the monopoly. Because, okay, let's say I want to buy a pair, I won't buy pants. Let's say I want to buy an Old Navy t-shirt. The only place I can buy that is Old Navy.
But you can buy all kinds of t-shirts. So, if Old Navy suddenly started charging $500 for their t-shirts, their sales would go down, probably not to zero, but people would look and say, oh, well, gee, I can buy this t-shirt for $30. Maybe I don't want to spend $500. But if somehow, you could say, well, nobody else can buy any t-shirt except, the cable companies have the same situation. They have monopolies, so they, can charge whatever they want and give crappy service.
I so badly want to let this continue this argument, because I don't agree. I don't agree with Jim or Jay, and I'd love to tell them why they're wrong, but we don't have time. So we may pick this up in the next edition of MacVoices Live, because I do, and we'll see what develops between now and then, because I think this is an important thing to talk about.
This will change.
Well, it's change, and everybody's made some good points, but I think there's still a couple that haven't been made, but we're gonna tease everybody with that, and let everybody get out of here at a decent hour. And so I'm going to make the rounds here, and so I want you all to do something for me. I want you all to turn your cameras off and turn your cameras back on, just so you can confuse the daylights out of me, please.
Oh no, I'm not turning anything off on this.
Yeah,
computer.
not you. Yeah, not
Except
you,
for Frank.
Yeah. Okay, so everybody's been rearranged now. So
Did that help?
no,
better?
it's just kind of normal. That's just kind of the way it is. So.
Screen looked
Jay.
familiar, and Chuck just needed to level up. That's all.
Yeah. All right. So, all right. Now everybody stop. Okay. Now so I can keep track of who I'm introducing.
Jay, you rock.
Jake just keeps to.
God. Oh,
You
Frank,
guys
you're
sell
up first.
advertising space. Me?
Yeah. Yes, you're up.
I
Yeah,
was
somehow you made it
wandering
to the
by
top.
and there was a light in the window, so I just went in here. Otherwise, you can find me on ympnow.com. Tomorrow is a new issue of Screencast Online magazine, and I have my monthly article in there. And you can get me on Twitter at fpetrie. You can get me on Instagram at PHRANKY Gesundheit. And I'm looking to try to do something hopefully within about 3 or 4 months. I want to get
Good.
back where you guys are.
Good. All right. Well, hey, it's good to have you back, Frank. We missed you. We definitely missed you.
Well, it was, I was going to lay low, but I found the more I lay low, how nature abhors a vacuum. The insurance company somehow got word that I was sort of chilling. And the insurance company decided to pull a bunch of stunts. And that kept me busy. So I said, screw it.
Getting back in the game.
The
Yeah.
man keeping you down.
Yeah.
That's all right. Jay, talk to that.
No,
Yeah.
Jay, don't. No.
Yes. Yeah, no,
We'll-
let Jay go on.
We'll be here for an hour.
That'd be a good hour, though.
Thanks for being here, Frank.
Well,
Brittany
that's good to
Smith,
hear.
thank you for coming as well. I know you had a few things that were demanding your time otherwise, but we always enjoy having you.
Aw, thanks. I'm happy to be here.
So where can we
Thank
find you?
you. On Twitter, I'm ADD Liberator on the occasions when I elect to tweet. And on YouTube, I'm also ADD Liberator. I like that.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Jim Ray, we have unfinished business, but we'll finish it later. Where can we find you? You're on mute. This is the way I like you. You're on mute. So.
We will settle this for once and for all, and there will never be any more discussion of this ever anywhere in the universe.
Where can we find you, Jim?
Oh gosh, ProView.com
Down
and on Twitter, ProView Jim. That's it. Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
ticket.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you, Jim. Good to see you. David Ginsburg. Yeah, you did get in a little bit more this time. I'm proud of you.
I felt bad last week, so I had to make up for it. You can find me at In Touch with iOS at intouchwithios.com. Jeff's going to be on the show this week along with Patrice, and you also find me here. You also find me at YouTube page, youtube.com/DaveG65. I'm on Twitter at DaveG65, and thanks for having me.
Thank you, David. Mr. Gammett, you're going to be on David's show, but when you're not on David's show, where else can we find you?
You can find me in Jim's backyard arguing with him with love, of course. And when I'm not in Jim's backyard, I'm on Twitter and Instagram. I'm Jay Gammett both places. My YouTube channel, youtube.com/JGammett, and here on Tuesdays and Thursdays, the Big Show, Fridays, the Mac Show. I kind of get around, and I realized a lot of people don't realize that I am doing copywriting for a lot of companies. So I still have some time on my schedule in case anyone needs some words.
Good. And that goes largely uncredited, Jeff. I mean, you're
Clean
hired
my
to do
desk.
it. So, so you don't get to talk about too much of that, I'm sure.
And no, a lot of it, companies want stuff written, and they don't want to advertise who's writing it for them, and which is not a creepy or weird thing. It's just the way the industry works.
Yeah.
I had to pause for a second and think. Now, Jeff didn't become a lawyer, did he?
No, but I've played one on stage before.
Different
on Law and
spelling of
Order.
copywriting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, good, Jim. Good.
I really did
Thank-
think that, though. I was like, what?
Yeah.
No, I'm still a nice guy, so no.
He's been in jail.
Thank you for being here, Jeff. Appreciate it.
But always a blast.
Okay, so I'm not gonna dignify the title that Mr. Miller gave himself earlier in the conversation. I'm just gonna say, Jay, where can we find you?
What was that title? I don't remember this
I
title.
think he means American Socialist.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
you know, if
Yeah.
I say the word communist, they'll come after me. So,
Yeah.
you-
Which is abbreviated, by the way, as AS. So
you know, yeah, American
Like a
State
socialist.
Socialist. I like that. So you can find me reading the partial amendment to the Telecommunications Business Act that the Senate of the 382nd National Assembly of Korea published, so that I can have some firepower as I'm providing my rebuttal next week. But if you want to hear me talk about things that are tech related, you can't really do that, honestly. But if you want to hear some productivity talk, Conduit, relay.fm/conduit, I'm there. My YouTube channel, I've got some new lights, so there might be some new videos. So be ready for that.
Jay, can you read that Korean thing?
I can't read it in Hangul, but I know that Google Translate can, and it seems to have done a decent job.
That's the best way to read legal documents.
Yeah.
Is in the original Korean,
In the original Google translation.
Yeah.
In the original Klingon.
in the original Klingon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Klingon, yeah.
Sometimes Google translated from English to English so you can understand them. Yeah, I agree.
Siri to English.
Last but absolutely not least, Ms. Kelly Gamont hiding down there in the corner after turning her camera on and off. Where can folks find you?
Well, tomorrow you can find me on what will tomorrow morning be the latest episode of Clockwise over on Relay FM. You can find me occasionally appearing on podcasts over at the Incomparable Network. On Agents of Smooch, we just recorded an episode about the film Singles, so you can go listen to me wear my flannel shirt and talk about Singles. And you can find me over there on the Football is Life podcast and on the show that I host there, which is I Want My MCU TV, where we talk about the latest Marvel show. And the rest of the time, you can find me 5 days a week over at the Mac Observer Daily Observations podcast at macobserver.com. And if you still want to know what I have to say, I do, in fact, have more to say. And I do that over on Twitter as Verso.
Kelly, Agents of Smooch, is that what
Agents
you
of
said?
Smooch. Yeah.
Okay.
They
don't
are
wanna
also a
go
bunch
there.
of communists over there. They are ROM communists. And they really enjoy
Ted Lasso.
so it's about like rom-com movies and stuff and like and we talk about different stuff. There's various episodes about different things, like there's the incomprehensible episodes where everybody breaks out a bottle of wine and watches one of the Twilight movies. There's
Need more than one bottle for that.
Yeah, sure, like
Well,
Mystery Science
I
Theater
mean-
3000.
a little bit with the commentary ones, yes. Then they talk about Hallmark movies around Christmas time, and for the
Need
fall
more
we
wine for
decided
that.
Signal, yeah, for the fall, I think a couple of them are incomprehensibles.
Here we go,
we did
Winseling.
we did Singles. There's been like last year we did a couple of Christmas movies like Love Actually and things like that. So there's some other different things, some different rom-com movies over there that are fun, and not all of them are particularly squishy movies, which is kind of a weird category to put things in, but yeah, they're there. So Agents of Smooch, and I do have an official agent identification card, so I am a card carrying agent of Smooch. And
Card-carrying
yeah, you
smooch?
can hear me go over there and talk about
Smooching.
Singles, which was the one
A
that
smooching.
there's very little smooching in Singles, so we didn't talk about it that much. But there are other ones that do. Yeah, I think they talk about it a lot in the Twilight movies. So I wasn't part of those. I didn't have enough liquor to watch a Twilight movie. So
Brittany, were you trying to show us your T-shirt?
No, not at that moment. Sorry.
Oh, I thought I saw you stand up a little bit. I thought you were
No,
specifically trying to.
but it's a little bit of a low. A little more obscure than some of them.
Oh,
I would
yes.
like to point out that most of the time, if Brittany is wearing a Star Wars T-shirt, that it is a T-shirt that is available from an Etsy store because
Near
she
you.
knows a guy.
Turns out,
Yeah.
biblically
I
even.
I
I
mean,
don't.
yada yada.
Thank you,
She knows a
Brittany.
guy that makes T-shirts. Yada yada yada. I married the two of them. There's the story. So you can get stuff from his website, from his Etsy shop, and it's great.
I don't know where I lost control of the show. I think it was
I
about
was
2 minutes
saying,
after
I
we started.
think it
Uh,
was when you said 3, 2, 1.
You've
2008.
been assuming you've ever had
Yeah.
control of this thing for years.
That's fair. One last comment from the chat room. Warren says, if a website landing page has 2 links that says buy this app for $5 on this link, new app store, or this link for $15, the app store, where do you think they will go?
But if I don't know
That is-
about the website and all I know
Right.
about is the app store,
Yeah.
then I'm
So-
paying $15.
Yeah. So I'm going to give Warren the last, because otherwise we'll just keep on going. So
Uh,
I want to thank the chat room. Definitely. You guys appreciate all the comments tonight and appreciate you showing up here every Tuesday night. It's always good to have you. We really, really like having you and having your comments. So thank you. Come back next Tuesday. We'll do it again.
Let's
And
make
that goes
Webb
for the
the
rest
next
of you.
CEO.
Yeah, that goes for the rest of you too. If you are available, we would love to have you at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, right here on MacVoices Live. Come on over and join us.
Or
and throw
1
your
a.m.
comments in.
English.
All right, Frank, calm down.
Okay.
We'd love to have you join us. Come on over here. Until the next time, I'm Chuck Joyner. As always, thanks for watching.
So, Chuck, you got the
Brittany's
pontoons on
modeling
your
some
ship yet?
T-shirts on there.
Oh man, what a night!
I said, Brittany,
You're
you're
supposed to
modeling
get
some
3
of
to
the
6
shirts.
inches tonight.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
know.
I guess I am. It wasn't my
Hmm.
intention. I don't know. I
Oh.
probably just was. I was adjusting because I keep sliding forward in this chair.
Yeah.
Oh, is that what it
Hurting
was?
my back.
Adjusting?
No, I'm looking at
Yeah.
Female Ray's Savage T-shirt.
That was his first one. It was
Okay.
my idea too.
That shirt is why Brittany and I are friends.
Yeah. That's how we became friends.
Through a shirt?
Through a Star
Yeah.
Wars shirt, Frank.
Right.
okay.
So he was just starting up this Etsy shop, and I was like, I don't know if it'll help, but I know some podcasters that are into Star Wars, and we can send them shirts. And Kelly was one of them.
But
No.
but
Yep.
then you already knew her.
Yeah.
But then you already knew her.
No,
I got a
I
Twitter
had
DM
heard
that
her
said,
on
Well,
what
how
was
did
then
you know her
Jeff's
address?
podcast. Because I'd heard her talk about Star Wars on what was then Jeff's podcast.
But how did you know the address to send it to?
I got a DM that
DM'd
said,
her on Twitter.
Oh, okay.
"Hi, I'd like to mail you a free Star Wars T-shirt. Can I have your address?" Okay.
And you gave it to her. That's amazing.
I mean, I went and looked. Like, she was legit. I knew I wasn't sending it.
I didn't
to-
have an egg.
Yeah, it wasn't an egg. It wasn't. There were actual tweets and stuff like happening. So
Not a
it
lot
was
of them,
fine.
but
No,
That's
no, it
sort of
wasn't a
still
ton,
true.
but there were some. She had a website.
Yeah.
It was functional. All of that, like everything, like
Yeah.
it checked out.
I was a
Cool
person.
story.
Yeah, somebody.
Well, then
somebody,
she made a mistake of saying on her other podcast, if you're ever in Portland, you should come to karaoke.
Yep.
And I was like, I can go to karaoke. I'd go to Portland.
Yep.
So
And then I got
Yeah.
another DM that said, "You said this," and like, "Is that true?" And I'm like, "Yup." And she's like, "When?" And I told her, and she showed up, and we've been friends ever since.
That's cool.
Okay.
yeah, she's responsible for all of this because she introduced me to Chuck. And yeah, it's
Yep.
dangerous.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
still don't know how I got here.
That's a great title. The Dangerous Kelly Gaumont.
Jay,
Ooh, I like
it
it.
all started when we opened up the trunk and pulled you back out.
Oh,
I think you
Took
can
the
blame
duct
Mike
tape off.
Potter. I think you can
Took
blame
the-
Yeah,
Mike
I think
Potter,
it
Jay.
is.
Oh yeah.
Mike Potter.
That's how I met you.
Buxton.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. I
Next
think
up.
he said, "Yeah, we got to get." He said, "You should talk to this Jay Miller guy. I'll get Mike for that."
That was a mistake.
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh man.
Hey Chuck, what did you do with your speakers? They're sideways now.
I've Jeff was kind enough to spend my money and show me these great speaker stands, and so right now I'm trying them sideways as opposed to up, seeing if I
Hey
like them
Jeff,
better.
spend some of your money and get me a computer.
I got some new lights, but I forgot to buy them stands yet. So, but I have new lights I should try out at some point
And it
after I buy them
was
stands.
a screaming deal on those lights.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was there.
Screaming deal.
So,
It was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because I went, wait, what's in those bags? Like behind the register? Because they said Newer on them, Neewer
We were at
What-
Goodwill looking at
We were at Goodwill.
Halloween costumes.
for Halloween stuff.
Really?
That's
At
Mm.
Goodwill?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh.
Oh
Yeah.
man.
And they kept the
I'm here
good
to
stuff
tell you.
behind the counter.
I
Mhm.
usually get
So-
weird furniture, but I've never heard they do electronics.
Oh well, we didn't either. We were just there for Halloween costumes, and then behind the counter
Yeah.
was like these two bags that said Newer on them, and I went, "What's in those?" And she's like, "I don't know. I think they're like a light or something." And then so she brought it over and opened it. We were like, "Can we see what's in there?" So she brought it over, opened it up, and it was a barn door light, and there was another one, and had a little price tag on it. And we were like, "Okay, is that each?" She's like, "No, that's for both of them." And Brittany went, "Yes, please." And so
Now, how did
Now
you
she
keep
has
from
two.
smiling and grinning like crazy?
we just looked at each other and went, "Be cool, be cool. It's fine, be
It
cool."
was sort of like,
And
step on each other's foot so you
bit,
feel
yeah.
pain. Yeah, okay.
a little bit.
Well, no, I mean, I wasn't really convinced until I'd actually gone back and plugged them in.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, you got to check these things out.
Yeah, but it's
Yeah.
newer.
But it
I
was
didn't
the
know
will.
Sure
if that
problems.
set work. Also, I had not heard of them because I hadn't really looked into it. So,
But now you know.
Yeah.
yeah,
There you go.
now I know.
Okay. Fair enough.
All right, guys, I'm
Now I
gonna
need to
drop.
buy them stands.
All right, David,
Right,
have
see
a
you,
good
David.
week.
All
Good
right,
night,
see you
guys.
guys.
Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you.
Have a good show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I'm going to say goodnight to the chat room. Guys, thank you very much for coming. We really appreciate it. I'm going to go batten down the hatches because we have a hurricane approaching or tropical
Was it
depression.
3 to 6 inches and possibly more in certain spots or something like that.
Yeah, that's what they're calling
Yeah.
for in our area.
It's just going to skirt us here in South Jersey. We're going to get the very edge, but there's this weird little pocket they keep showing that shows up like an hour after everything dries out. And that looks like it's got 2 inches of rain in it. So
Yeah. Yeah. They're telling us, make sure you've cleaned out your downspouts, open up any drains around your house, any sewer drains, make
lift
sure
up
that
stuff in the basement.
the water. Yeah. I knock whatever, but I haven't had that problem. But they're saying make sure that if you have anything that can be damaged, you have it up off the floor, and make sure your sump pumps are working. All the usual. I mean, the good news is here we aren't going to get the full effects of the wind or storm surge, obviously in Pennsylvania, but we still are going to get a lot of water dumped on us.
Is this Ida?
Yeah.
What's
Okay.
left of it? Yeah.
Now, in contrast, I've spent the last couple days pretty much just inside with my air filters running because there's so much smoke in the air that it's unhealthy to be outside.
Yeah.
It's sad.
It
Welcome to the
is.
end of the world.
Pretty much.
Well, I don't know about that, but so anyway, good night,
Just as you
chat
know
room.
it.
Thank you guys. Thank
Yeah,
you.
we'll
Really
end on that
appreciate you
happy
being here.
note.
Yes.